Hello everyone, welcome to the channel 5 Minutes of Discovery. We will explore a mysterious and fascinating land that many people have probably heard of, that is the Golden Triangle. When mentioning the Golden Triangle, many people will probably immediately think of thrilling stories about drugs, because this place is considered one of the hotspots in this field globally. But the interesting thing is, the Golden Triangle is not only a symbol of social issues but also a special geographical area. Located between three countries, Thailand, Myanmar and Laos, the shape of this area is really like a triangle, and the name, Golden, is not accidental. It reflects the richness and potential of this land. From green fields, majestic mountains to diverse and unique culture. Join me as we explore the Golden Triangle, not only to learn about its highlights, but also to experience the stories, lives, and rich cultural nuances that await us. Surely, after this journey, you will have a new and emotional perspective on a land filled with wonders. When mentioning the name Golden Triangle, many people will probably immediately think of stories related to drugs. But in fact, this name is not simply a brand, but also contains many interesting and mysterious things. First of all, we can understand the Golden Triangle as a small triangular sand dune, formed by the Mekong River flowing through Myanmar, which has a shape like the tip of a knife, slightly tilted to the east, with a length of less than half a kilometer and a width of about 300 meters. This sand dune often attracts tourists because of its unique beauty and great souvenir photos. However, if we only look at that small sand dune, we will not see the vastness of the Golden Triangle. This area actually covers a huge area, equivalent to half of northern Vietnam. It stretches from Shan province of Myanmar, through the northern provinces of Thailand, to the remote areas of Laos. The Golden Triangle is not only a place where three cultures intersect, but also a vivid picture of life, people and nature. It contains historical stories, cultural heritages and the marks of time. Most of the Golden Triangle is covered by hills and mountains that are more than 1.00 meters above sea level. With a cold and humid climate, these natural conditions are ideal for growing opium poppies, while other crops such as corn, cassava or wheat do not yield high yields. Therefore, the people here have chosen opium poppies as their main source of income. And since then, the Golden Triangle has become a name associated with stories of drug production and trafficking. However, what created the name Golden Triangle? This land is located at the intersection of three countries, Laos, Thailand and Myanmar, each of which uses a separate currency. This difference makes it difficult to conduct trade, and therefore, payments here are often made in gold. That is why this area is called the Golden Triangle, a name that is both beautiful and practical. In fact, the Golden Triangle is famous not only for these things, but also for the enormous scale of its drug production. Its heyday lasted from the 1950s to the late 20th century, when the area produced 3/4 of the world's narcotics. Its peak was in the 1970s to 1990s, when more than 160.00 hectares of opium and cannabis were grown in Myanmar. In Laos, before 1975, opium cultivation was over 50.00 hectares. But this had dropped to over 17.00 hectares by 2001. Thailand, although not a major opium grower, was a major transit point during the 1960s to 1990s. Opium production from the Golden Triangle in 1996 reached 2.560 tons, a huge figure that made it one of the most famous drug-producing regions in the world. Another interesting point is that Afghanistan, Iran and Pakistan were later associated with opium-growing areas, giving rise to the name Golden Crescent. This created a link between the two regions, with India acting as a bridge. In the 1980s, drug production from the Golden Triangle met 3/4 of global consumption. But with the emergence of the Golden Crescent, this production has dropped significantly. In the Golden Triangle, it is impossible not to mention the powerful tycoons. And one of the most prominent names is Li Shi. He was born and raised in Yunnan province, China, and followed the path of military service, rising to the rank of general in the Kuomintang army, and was awarded the title by Chiang Kai-shek in 1945. When the Kuomintang was defeated in October 1949, Chiang Kai-shek was forced into exile in Taiwan. Meanwhile, Li Shi withdrew his troops south, crossed the border into Thailand and settled with ethnic minorities in northern Myanmar. Here, he was not only a military leader, but also built a state for the Han people, seeking to build up forces to retake Yunnan. Due to not receiving the necessary aid, Li Shi decided to direct his army to grow opium to accumulate assets, purchase weapons and train soldiers. In late 1953, after the US intervened in the situation in the region, Li Shi and his army were forced to leave the Golden Triangle and move to Taiwan. However, the remaining 7,000 soldiers did not obey the order. They persisted in staying here, continuing to organize opium production on a larger scale, and from there nurtured the hope of an autonomous land. Li Shi's story is not only a part of history, but also reflects the aspirations and pain of people in the context of war and conflict. By 1967, the remnants of the Kuomintang were faced with a new and powerful force in the Golden Triangle, Hanza. Also known as Zhang Qifu. Born in 1933, Hanza was of mixed Chinese and San descent. He was born and raised in the land of the White Death, where opium was an integral part of life. Hanza had a fairly formal education and was exposed to many different cultures of China. However, with a deep understanding of the value of the drug plant, he did not stop at studying, but also devoted himself to researching methods of growing and processing opium. At the age of 18, Hanza was already famous in the area, honored as the head of a branch of the Han community. From this point on, he began to build up his forces, train soldiers, and gradually drive many forces out of the Golden Triangle. However, 1967 marked a bloody conflict between the remnants of the Kuomintang and the indigenous San people. The war dragged on with the participation of the Thai and Lao air forces. And as a result, Hanza was defeated and imprisoned. But after 2 years in prison, with the help of his colleagues, Hanza escaped. The bitter lesson from his previous failure helped him become more sophisticated. Hanza reorganized his forces, developed the production and export of opium systematically and methodically. Instead of using force, he advocated using dialogue and building relationships with many governments. Under Hanza's direction, the San people were encouraged to grow opium in the highlands of Laos. After harvesting, opium would be processed in Myanmar and exported to the world through Thailand. In the 1980s, opium production peaked, with 60% of the heroin entering the United States and 3/4 of the world's narcotics coming from the region. Hanza was known as the Prince of White Death, but his soldiers were not allowed to be drug addicts. Since the 1980s, the Myanmar government has implemented many measures to deal with the drug problem in the Golden Triangle. However, for Hanza, the only way to solve it is to persuade and show mercy. He not only suppressed his opponents but also used clever tactics, helping the Myanmar government defeat the army. Finally, in 1996, Hanza surrendered, accepting the leniency policy of the Myanmar government. He lived under special supervision in a villa in Dragon and died in 2007. After washing his hands of the sword, Hanza's departure, along with the weakening of other forces, created conditions for governments in the region to start mobilizing people to give up opium and switch to growing peonies. Now, the Golden Triangle has transformed into an attractive eco-tourism area, attracting many visitors. From Thailand, visitors can see the Golden Triangle from above. On the right is Laos. On the left is Myanmar, and in the distance is China. Places once associated with opium have now become tourist destinations such as the Four Great Headquarters, the residence of Hanza, or the Opium Museum, and of course, no one wants to miss the opportunity to set foot on the famous Golden Triangle sand dunes, which have now become a symbol of this area. Thank you for following this interesting story. If you find it interesting, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell and share the video. Every day, we will premiere 2 new videos at 11 AM and 7 PM. Now, goodbye and see you again on the next journeys.